To care for my husband who went mad from the aftermath of a car accident, I exhausted all my family's wealth and spent 10 years. When his illness flared up, he would beat me black and blue, only to hold me and weep bitterly when he regained his senses. Friends all urged me to divorce him, but I could never forget that it was he who pushed me away from the wheels, only to be struck in the head and become like this, until the day he accidentally killed me in a fit. And my soul floated up to the ceiling, watching him carefully wipe away his mistress's tears. Why cry? Shouldn't we be celebrating now that she's dead? But I feel sorry for you, Nash. You pretended to be crazy for 10 years just to swindle all her money. He kissed her lips, his voice icy. I've endured for 10 years. Finally I don't have to deal with that bitch anymore. So that car accident was deliberately staged by them, all to execute this perfect self-inflicted injury scheme. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day my husband was diagnosed with mental illness. Mr. Liang's brain nerves have suffered impact damage. While there's no life-threatening danger, his mental state may become unstable, alternating between lucidity and madness. The doctor handed the diagnosis report to me, sighing heavily. Only then did I realize that I had been reborn. You should take him home first and let him recuperate slowly. A familiar environment will help with recovery. I didn't pay much attention to the doctor's advice, just staring at Nash Liang on the bed, whose eyelids twitched slightly. Clearly pretending to be asleep. In my previous life, I believed the doctor's words, carried him home, worked like an ox to earn money during the day, and endured his beatings at night. Meanwhile, his little mistress, Isla Lin, under the guise of being a psychiatric specialist, took him out for treatment during the day. In reality, she drove my car, swiped my cards, and frolicked around with him, indulging in pleasure. This time around, you still expect me to take you home. Dream on. I walked to the hospital bed, leaned down, and quietly reached my hand toward his thigh. Then, with all his might, he twisted. Oh! A pig-slaughtering shriek shattered the peace of the hospital ward. Nash Liang leaped up from the bed, pointing at me and cursing. Zia Zhong, are you fucking crazy? I'm not crazy, but in this lifetime, I'll make you the real madman. I shouted toward the door. Someone come quick. Doctor, nurse, my husband is having an episode. He's out of control. The nurses and doctors rushed in immediately, only to see Nash Liang with a ferocious expression trying to lunge off the bed to hit me, while I cowered in the corner, crying pitifully. Quick! Restraints! The doctor ordered decisively. Nash Liang perhaps forgot his crazy persona, struggling desperately and shouting at the nurse. Get away from me, I'm not crazy. She's the one who's insane. Wiping my tears, I held his bound hands and said, Honey, don't worry, even if you've lost your mind, I'll never divorce you. My voice trembled, neither too loud nor too soft, but just enough for everyone in the ward to hear clearly. Nash Liang's face instantly turned from red to pale. He glared at me fiercely, the resentment in his eyes almost overflowing. The surrounding patients and their family members looked at me with sympathy and admiration. What a kind-hearted girl, standing by her husband despite his condition. They murmured, yeah, running into this kind of mess is just the worst luck in 8 lifetimes. Under everyone's gaze, I tearfully poured out my grievances to the doctor, voice choked with sobs. Doctor, for his safety and mine, please help me contact the best psychiatric hospital immediately. I need to transfer him. What? Nash Liang's eyes nearly popped out of his head. Zia Zhong, how dare you? He thrashed wildly, the restraints turning his skin red. I'm not sick, I'm not crazy, you poisonous woman. I ignored his roars, simply casting a sorrowful and helpless glance at the attending physician. Doctor, you see, he's already started talking nonsense and showing signs of persecution delusions. I'm his lawful wife. Yet he doesn't even recognize me anymore. Hurry up and help me push them. I must send my husband to the best mental hospital to cure him. The doctor stepped back helplessly while comforting me sympathetically. Don't worry, Miss Zhong, the people from the mental hospital will be here soon. As soon as these words were spoken, I saw sheer terror flood Nash Liang's face. All his explanations became irrefutable proof of his severe condition. Zia Zhong, you bitch, how dare you set me up? I'll kill you. Filled with rage, he tried to charge at me but collapsed under the doctor's sedative. watching him gradually calm down. Powerless yet still wanting to kill me, I smirked. Don't worry, hubby, I'll make sure they cure you. The transfer procedures to the psychiatric hospital went surprisingly smoothly. I chose the Kangning Mental Health Center for Nash Liang, the facility with the strictest security in the entire city, and they specially upgraded him to a VIP package. 24/7 surveillance with no blind spots, double-layered protective doors, and twice-daily sedation therapy. Just as I finished signing and was about to leave, Isla Lin rushed over in a hurry. She grabbed my hand, her face full of anxiety and disbelief. Sister Zia, I heard about the car accident, but I never imagined it would be this serious. How could you send Brother Nash to a place like this? I withdrew my hand and took a subtle step back, creating some distance between us. I had no choice. The doctor said he has severe violent tendencies, and it's too dangerous to keep him at home, I sighed. Then abruptly changed the subject, looking at her curiously. But how did you find this place? I don't think I've had the chance to notify anyone yet. Isla Lin's expression stiffened slightly before she explained. I was worried about Nash, so I called all his old friends until I found out. What a perfect excuse. So that's how it is, I nodded, a grateful smile appearing on my face. You're so thoughtful. By the way, I was just looking for an expert to consult. Didn't you mention you have a friend who's a psychiatric specialist? Isla Lin's eyes lit up as she quickly responded. Yes, I have a friend who's an authority in this field. Don't worry, Zia, I'll make sure he uses the best treatment plan for Nash. That's wonderful. I was overjoyed and, right in front of Dr. Wang, the chief physician from the psychiatric hospital beside us, bombarded her with a series of questions. Miss Lin is truly kind-hearted. May I ask which esteemed hospital your expert friend works at? Could I take a look at his medical license and professional qualification certificates? After all, I wouldn't dare to casually entrust Nash's condition to an unlicensed quack. Isla Lin's face instantly turned the color of liver, and she stammered for a long time without managing to utter a single word. I didn't give her a chance to catch her breath. I immediately turned around and said to Dr. Wang with an apologetic expression, Dr. Wang, I'm really sorry, my friend here is just too enthusiastic. From now on, Nash's medical condition is entirely in your hands. Also, to avoid unnecessary trouble, please make sure to verify with me first if anyone other than myself claims to be his friend, relative, or any kind of expert and requests to visit him, if a medical accident were to happen. None of us could bear the responsibility. Dr. Wang nodded solemnly. Rest assured, Mrs. Liang, we have strict visitation regulations in place. There won't be any mistakes. Isla Lin stood nearby, her face as pale as a strangled chicken. She realized that the inside-outside collusion plan had been completely thwarted by me at the very first step. Upon returning home, I gathered all of Nash Liang's bank cards and dialed the bank's customer service hotline. Hello. I need to report the loss of all bank cards under my name and my husband Nash Liang's name. Yes, all of them, immediately, right now. The reason, my husband has gone mentally unstable, and I suspect he's shared the cards and passwords with outsiders. For the safety of our funds, please freeze all accounts immediately. In my previous life, they lived extravagantly, spending money from these cards like water. This time, I'd like to see how carefree you can be without my money. Sure enough. Within 3 days, that despicable couple was driven to desperate measures. The miniature listening device I had planted in Isla Lin's car earlier transmitted their furious conversation. I listened leisurely while applying a face mask. That bitch Xia Zhong. Isla Lin's voice was sharp and piercing. She froze all the cards. I went to withdraw money, and the account was blocked. On the other end of the phone, Nash Liang's voice came through. Suppressed with anger and carrying a barely noticeable hint of panic. Isla, we can't wait any longer. If we wait any longer, I'll really go crazy here with those nurses and doctors forcing injections on me every day. What should we do? We have no money now, and we can't even see anyone. I can't even afford a bag anymore. Isla Lin's voice trembled with tears. I got it, Nash. Just wait. I'll find a way to get you out first. We'll settle the score with that bitch Xia Zhong later. Isla Lin somehow managed to get her hands on a set of nursing staff uniforms and bribed a new janitor, planning to work from the inside to smuggle Nash Liang out. I decided to play along with their scheme. That night, I deliberately called Dr. Wang, saying I had a nightmare about Nash getting into trouble and felt uneasy, so I asked him to check on Nash more often. Dr. Wang reassured me that everything was fine but promised to keep a closer eye on him. At midnight, Isla Lin disguised herself as a nursing aide, quietly slipping into Nash Liang's ward while pushing a cart full of dirty sheets. Nash Liang had already changed his clothes and was hiding at the very bottom of the cart. Everything was going smoothly. They successfully deceived the first checkpoint and arrived at the back door of the rehabilitation center. Outside the back door, the bribed cleaner was waiting to assist them, however, just as Nash Liang was climbing out of the cart. "What are you doing?" A sharp shout, accompanied by several beams of flashlight, left them with nowhere to hide. It was Dr. Wang leading the security team, who happened to be passing by on patrol. Nash Liang and Isla Lin were caught on the spot. The consequences of this escape attempt were severe. Nash Liang was identified as an extremely dangerous individual and was transferred to the intensive care unit in the deepest part of the sanatorium. The windows there were only the size of a palm, and the door was a quadruple-locked iron gate. His daily range of activity was confined to that 10-square-meter room. He was completely imprisoned. But what surprised me was that he could still call Isla Lin, "Isla, we have no other way out." In the surveillance recording, Nash Liang's voice was icy and desperate. "Only if Zia Zhong dies can I get out. We can get the money, and everything can end. I'll find an opportunity to tell the doctor that my condition has improved and request to meet her in person. Let's meet at Qingyu Lake outside the city. It's remote, and no one will be there at night. When the time comes, I'll push her into the water and hold her down. We'll say she drowned herself in despair, and I couldn't save her because of my illness." "Good, that's the plan." Isla Lin's voice carried a ruthless determination, as if burning all bridges. "Nash, this is our last chance." Listening to the conversation through my headphones, the smile on my lips grew wider. When all escape routes are blocked for a person, the evil in human nature is unleashed without reservation. The moment I've been waiting for has arrived. A few days later, I received a call from Dr. Wang. He said Nash Liang has been much more stable lately, no longer making noise, and can even engage in some simple conversations. Nash Liang himself strongly requested to meet with me, suggesting the location be by Qingyu Lake, where we once had a date. "Mrs. Liang, after evaluation, we believe this could be a positive sign and might aid in his recovery. We will assign 2 caregivers to accompany you to ensure safety." "All right then," I reluctantly agreed. For his sake, I'm willing to try one more time. Friday, dusk, I parked the car in a small grove some distance away, turned off the engine, and waited quietly. A few minutes later, a white van from the sanatorium slowly pulled up as well. The car door opened, and Nash Liang stepped out with 2 caregivers. Nash Liang said to the caregivers, "Brothers, could you please wait in the car for a moment? I'd like to have a few words alone with my wife. It won't take more than 10 minutes. The caregivers exchanged glances and nodded. As this had been discussed beforehand, Nash Liang took a deep breath, straightened his clothes, and walked step by step toward the woman in the red dress by the lake. That red dress is my favorite and most frequently worn piece of clothing. Splash, water sprayed everywhere. The woman had no time to react before being swallowed by the icy lake water. She choked on several mouthfuls of water, struggling desperately in the water, flailing and shouting, "Nash, it's me." However, Nash Liang couldn't hear what she was shouting at all, or rather, he simply didn't care. Without hesitation, he jumped into the water, pressing her head down firmly, submerging her again and again. Die, Zia Zhong, you bitch. You ruined everything for me," he roared insanely, having completely lost his mind. The woman's struggles grew weaker and weaker until, finally, the last string of bubbles vanished from the water's surface. Nash Liang gasped heavily for breath, his face twisted into a satisfied, sinister smile. He had succeeded. He had killed Zia Zhong. freedom, and wealth were beckoning to him. At that very moment, a voice tinged with curiosity softly emerged from the darkness behind him. "Honey, what are you doing?" Nash Liang's body stiffened abruptly, and the smile on his face froze instantly. He turned his head slowly, inch by inch. I stand on the shore, wearing a beige trench coat, holding a flashlight in my hand, with a sweet and innocent smile on my face, quietly watching him. Our eyes met. "Honey, you killed the wrong person." I let out a light laugh, my tone as casual as if I were discussing the weather with him. His pupils instantly shrank to the size of pinpoints. Ah! A scream unlike any human sound tore through the silent night sky over Qingyu Lake. Nash Liang's mind felt as if struck by a heavy hammer. Buzzing and dazed, in disbelief, he lowered his head and stared intently at the face in the water under the moonlight. He stared for a full 10 seconds. He clearly saw the corpse in the water, dressed in a red dress, and the wide-open, lifeless eyes that belonged to Isla Lin. Then, he turned his gaze to me. I said calmly, "Your affairs kinks really haven't changed. Does wearing my clothes still give you that thrill?" At that moment, the world in his eyes completely collapsed. The two caregivers in the sanatorium vehicle immediately rushed over upon hearing the screams. What they saw was this scene. In the lake, a madman and a dead man were submerged. On the shore stood a terrified, trembling innocent wife. I collapsed onto the ground, pointing at Nash Liang in the lake and screaming, "Murder! My husband killed someone." In the distance, the shrill sound of police sirens grew louder and closer. That sound became the final straw that shattered Nash Liang's sanity. But it also instantly triggered his innate survival instinct. He suddenly clutched his head and began thrashing wildly in the waist-deep water, sending splashes everywhere. "Ah! Monster! Stay away! Stay away!" He let out an incoherent roar, his voice filled with terror. He kept pointing at Isla Lin's corpse, then at me in terror, his entire demeanor utterly deranged. "Monster! I killed the monster! Ha 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 ha! I killed it!" When the first group of police officers rushed to the lakeside, this was the bizarre scene that greeted them. "Nash Liang, do you really think the same trick will let you escape a second time? Alright, you want to pretend to be crazy. I'll make it happen for you, using all my strength." I cried until I was nearly fainting, begging the police, "Comrade, my husband is having another episode. He can't be treated as a criminal. He needs to be sent back to the psychiatric hospital immediately. Please, I beg you. Send him back for the most intensive treatment. Please, I'm begging you." The officer looked at me, then at the man in the water who had completely lost his mind, a flicker of pity in his eyes. Because Nash Liang was too ill to undergo normal interrogation, he was sent back to the Kungning Mental Health Center that very night. As an exhausted wife, I tearfully signed a special treatment consent form in front of the attending physician, Dr. Wang. On the document, the words, "ECT electroconvulsive therapy" were heavily underlined by my pen. "Dr. Wang," I raised my bloodshot eyes and spoke in a hoarse voice, "no matter what method you use, please, you must cure him. I've heard electroconvulsive therapy is quite effective for severe, violent tendency delusional disorders, isn't it?" Dr. Wang adjusted his glasses, his eyes filled with professional sympathy and a hint of hesitation. "Mrs. Liang, you need to consider this carefully. ECT therapy, what we commonly call electroshock therapy, works quickly but has very significant side effects. It may cause issues like memory confusion and cognitive decline in patients, and the process is extremely painful, I'm certain." I interrupted him without hesitation, my tone resolute and firm. "As long as it can restore him to normal, as long as it can free him from those terrifying delusions, I'm willing to do anything. No matter how great the suffering, it's better than him being in this deranged state. This is for his own good." Dr. Wang was moved by my deep affection. He sighed and nodded in agreement. "Very well, Mrs. Liang, we respect your decision. We will arrange the highest intensity treatment plan for Mr. Liang." Thus, Nash Liang's good days officially began. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday became his designated days of torment. He would be pinned down on the treatment bed by several strong orderlies, with his hands and feet bound. The cold electrode pads were pressed against his temples. The moment Dr. Wang flipped the switch. A powerful electric current surged through his brain. He would convulse violently, like a fish thrown ashore, his entire body racked with spasms. Even with his jaw forcibly pried open and a mouthguard inserted, white foam still gushed uncontrollably from the corners of his mouth. His eyeballs rolled upward, revealing only the terrifying whites of his eyes. The entire process lasted mere seconds, yet felt as long as a century. When the electric current stopped, he would collapse onto the bed like a pile of mud, drenched in sweat. Upon waking, he was met with excruciating headaches and hours of nausea and vomiting. His memories became fragmented, often unable to distinguish whether he was in reality or a dream. Sometimes, he would even forget who he was. But this was just the appetizer. The more exciting part was that, under my discreet arrangements, Nash Liang was placed in the violent ward of the rehabilitation center. Here, the residents are all genuine, certified lunatics by authority. He was pretending to be crazy, but the others were truly insane. On Nash Liang's first day of moving in, during lunch, he got into trouble just for glancing one extra time at a bald patient who was eating with his hands. The bald patient grinned at him, revealing an eerie smile. In the next second, the bald patient lunged at him like lightning, pinning him firmly to the ground. Then, grabbing a nearby stainless steel food tray, he struck his head again and again with brutal force. By the time the caregivers arrived to pull them apart, his head was already drenched in blood. He lay on the ground, watching the bald patient being dragged away while still grinning foolishly at him, feeling a deep, visceral fear. The next day, he was sound asleep in the middle of the night. The patient in the same ward, who always liked to sleep while hugging something, mistook him for a newly acquired, giant teddy bear. The burly man, weighing over 200 pounds, pressed his entire body down, tightly clutching his head and pressing it against his own chest. A suffocating sensation instantly overwhelmed Nash Liang. He struggled desperately, yet couldn't budge the mountain of flesh in the slightest. Just as he thought he would be smothered to death, a night shift nurse noticed the anomaly and saved his life. He collapsed on the bed, gasping for air, his heart pounding so violently it felt ready to burst. Day 3, Nash Liang had just received his lunch, a plate of rice drizzled with gravy and 2 steamed buns. Before he could carry it back to his seat, a burly man with drool dripping from his mouth and a vacant stare passed by, casually snatched both buns from his tray, and stuffed them into his own mouth, having starved all morning and recalling the incidents of the past 2 days. Nash Liang burned with rage. He rushed forward to snatch it back, cursing, "You fucking lunatic." As a result, the burly man stopped chewing and stared at him expressionlessly. Then, he grabbed his outstretched right hand. A crisp asterisk crack asterisk sounded. One of his index fingers was forcibly snapped at an unnatural angle by the other party. The excruciating pain made him let out a pig-slaughtering scream. Here, all the tricks he had learned from pretending to be insane in the past, those bluffs and roars, were utterly useless. In return, he received only more direct, more brutal, and more unreasonable beatings and torture. Nash Liang tried to plead with the doctors and nurses, insisting he wasn't sick and that he was faking it. But the more he said this, the more sympathetic the doctors and nurses looked at him. "Mr. Liang, your delusional disorder has worsened again. This is a classic case of anosognosia. Don't worry, we'll intensify the treatment." Thus, the intensity of his electroshock therapy was turned up to the maximum. His sedative dosage was increased to the highest level. He once believed that mental illness would be his paradise for exoneration. Now, he lives in endless fear and torment every day, with every minute and second being an unbearable ordeal. A month later, while I was happily enjoying my afternoon tea, I received a call from Dr. Wang. On the phone, Dr. Wang's tone was somewhat complicated. "Mrs. Liang, your husband, he has been extremely emotional lately, crying and begging to see you. He said he has something very important to tell you, and it must be said in person. He said he knows he was wrong and begs you to come see him." I set down the delicate bone china teacup, a cold smile curling at the corners of my lips. The moment had come. "Very well, Dr. Wang, thank you for your efforts. I'll go this afternoon." I arrived at the visiting room of the Conning Mental Health Center. Through the visitation window, I saw Nash Liang. He was wearing a faded blue and white striped hospital gown that hung loosely on his emaciated frame. His hair had been shaved into a buzz cut, revealing several scars of varying depths on his scalp. Not a trace of arrogance or triumph remained on his face. He looked haggard, his eyes filled with an overwhelming fear and desperation, the moment he saw me appear. Nash Liang seemed to spot a savior. He abruptly stood up from his chair, rushed to the glass, and grabbed the black intercom. Zia, as soon as he spoke, his voice trembled violently, choked with sobs. Zia, I was wrong. I was truly wrong. Tears streamed down his face as he spoke. His haggard features streaked with tear stains. It was all that bitch Isla Lin. It was her. She seduced me. She convinced me, saying that as long as we got rid of you, we could be together forever. And all the property under your name would be mine. He didn't hesitate to shift all the blame onto a dead man. Zia, have you forgotten our past feelings? All those years of affection between us? Have you forgotten that car accident? It was to protect you that I became mentally ill. I took the disaster for you. Hearing this, I nearly burst out laughing. That car accident was clearly a scheme he plotted together with Isla Lin. The so-called taking the hit for me was just his post-facto excuse to manipulate me. Please, Zia, let me out. I don't want to stay here anymore. This place is hell, a real hell. He cried with tears and snot streaming down his face, lightly bumping his head against the glass repeatedly, producing dull thudding sounds. I'll be your slave when I get out. I'll do anything you say. I'll give you all my family's property. Please, I beg you. I love you and only you with all my heart. I'll never waver. I listened quietly, a smile always on my face, as if watching a clown perform. When he finally cried himself breathless and couldn't speak anymore, I slowly picked up my receiver. Honey, I responded through the phone, using the gentlest and most caring voice I could muster. What nonsense are you talking about? You're sick, very sick. Everything you're saying is just your hallucinations. The doctor said that only when you can completely forget these unrealistic delusions will you truly be better. You need to cooperate with the treatment properly so you can recover sooner. Understand? Nash Liang froze, tears still hanging on his face, his mouth slightly agape, his entire body petrified. He had imagined countless possibilities. He thought I would be angry, would question, would cry, or even soften my heart. The plea in his eyes gradually faded. Zia Zhong. He threw himself against the glass, his face twisted with rage. It's you. It was all your doing, you venomous woman. I picked up the phone receiver, smiling as I looked at him. Honey, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Stop pretending. He roared. What the hell do you want? I don't want anything. I tilted my head slightly, raising an eyebrow. I just want you to find life unbearable and death unattainable. Nash Liang fiercely slammed his head and fists against the icy barrier. You venomous woman. You heartless viper. Did you really think I wouldn't know it was your doing? His sanity completely shattered, he roared with a hoarse voice. You wait, just you wait. Once I'm out, I'll kill you with my own hands. I swear I will. Just as I planned. Drowning you in that icy lake, then chopping you into pieces, feeding your remains to the dogs. You think you've won. Let me tell you, no way. If I'm going down, you're coming with me. I'll kill you. I'll slaughter your entire family. Dr. Wang and the two orderlies outside the visitation room turned pale and rushed in immediately. They scrambled frantically to subdue Nash Liang, who had completely lost his mind. I watched as he was pinned to the ground by two burly orderlies, yet still struggled desperately, roaring at me. One by one, I took out the special gifts I had prepared for him from my bag. Photos after photos show their intimate moments traveling to various places in my car. Stack after stack of bills are records of them squandering my hard-earned money. Finally, there's a small USB drive. Inside this is the phone recording of you and Isla Lin plotting the car accident, and all the conversations where you discussed how to kill me. I waved the USB drive at him and whispered softly, Honey, don't worry, I'll hire the best lawyer in all of China to defend me. I'll have them prove to the judge that you, Nash Liang, were fully conscious, logically sound, and completely normal. A person with full criminal responsibility. When you killed Isla Lin, In that instant, Nash Liang's face turned ashen, and the light in his eyes completely faded. Amid his hysterical curses, I hummed a little tune and walked away. A few days later, the courtroom was packed to capacity. This bizarre case of a mentally ill patient mistakenly killing his lover had captured the attention of the entire city. As the key witness, I took my seat in the witness stand. Nash Liang's defense attorney is still trying to use mental instability to exonerate him. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't look at Nash Liang but instead faced the judge and jury, speaking slowly, "Your Honor," before stating the facts. "I'd like to share a story that spans 10 years. I began with how we met, recounted the unexpected car accident, described my decade-long care, and detailed every instance of abuse I endured." My voice was calm, yet filled with a sorrow that moved the entire courtroom. Then, I presented my evidence: the truth of the car accident, the embezzlement of property, the murder plot. When the recording from the USB drive played clearly in the courtroom, the entire room erupted in uproar. "Bro Nash, as long as the impact isn't too severe and the brain gets slightly injured, we can claim you're insane. Push her into the water, hold her down, and just say she couldn't take it anymore." Each word, every whisper, serves as proof of their crimes. Public outrage exploded completely. Nash Liang sat in the defendant's seat, his face ashen. He looked at me, his eyes no longer filled with hatred, only endless fear and a trace of pleading. He knew it was over for him. Finally, the court delivered its verdict. The defendant Nash Liang is found guilty of intentional murder and fraud. Considering the combined penalties for multiple offenses, he is sentenced to death with immediate execution. The moment the judge struck the gavel, I saw Nash Liang collapse in his chair like a pile of mud. He feigned madness for 10 years, yet in the end, he must face his doom in the most lucid state. Stepping out of the courthouse, the sunlight was just right. I looked up at the azure sky and took a deep breath. The air no longer carried the stench of blood and decay, only freedom and rebirth. Reporters swarmed forward, thrusting microphones in my face. "Ms. Zhong, how are you feeling right now? Do you have anything to say about this outcome?" I looked into the camera and revealed a long-lost, heartfelt smile. "I want to say that justice may be delayed, but it will never be absent." And I paused, my gaze seemingly piercing through time and space, seeing my previous self who was battered and died with unclosed eyes. "I want to say to all those going through dark times, please don't give up hope, because dawn will eventually come." At the end of the story, I sold that nightmare-filled house and used the money that was rightfully mine to open a small flower shop. Every day, I keep company with flowers and plants and walk alongside the sunlight. I didn't start a new relationship, nor did I expect anything, because I've come to understand that the best love is to love oneself. One day, a customer asked me why there were so many sunflowers planted in the shop. I smiled and told her, because they always face the sun, just like me. In my past life, I died for him. In this life, he died because of me. The price of loving the wrong person. I repaid it with a lifetime of pain, while he paid with his entire life. That's fair.